Hey everyone, it's Heather Nichols, and I have a fun set of tags to share with you that were created with farm-themed products that are available at Tailored Expression. In the video, I'm going to show you how I specifically created the chicken tag, but all of the tags are created in the same way. You're going to love the fun interactive element by using a wobble spring behind the animals' heads. I'll be using the Farm Fresh Critters stamp set and the coordinating die for the chicken. There are dies available for all of the images in this set. I'm using the Farm Fresh stamp set. This set includes a whole lot of fun sentiments and a barn image that coordinate with those cute animals. I'll be using the gingham check background stamp. I'm using a tag reinforcement die as well as the second largest die from the Stitched Banners Stacklets die set. I'll be using scissors to do a little bit of fussy cutting. I'm doing coloring with Copic markers, and I'll also be using some Prismacolor pencils along with blending stumps and Gamsol for shading. I have a 1/4-inch circle punch to punch a hole on the top of the tag. For stamping, I'm using Oreo and Sugar Cube inks. I have gingham ribbon from my own stash that I'm using at the top of the tags. I have the mini wobble springs that I'll use behind the animal heads on the tags. And finally, I'll be using a foam square to pop up a piece on my project. All right, let's get started. I'm stamping the images that I'm using for this project, the barn, the chicken head, and the chicken body onto Sugar Cube cardstock using Oreo ink. Both the Sugar Cube cardstock and the Oreo ink are Copic compatible. I'm placing the stamps into the MISTI onto the cardstock where I want them to stamp. I'm closing the lid of the MISTI to pick up the stamps. I'm inking up the stamps with Oreo ink, and then I'm closing the lid of the MISTI to stamp the images onto the cardstock. To color my images, I'm laying down a base color using Copic markers. I'm using a light red for the barn. I'm using a light tan for the trim on the barn. I'm using a light gold for the hay in the barn window. I'm using a gray color for the shadow in the window and the bird on the top of the barn. I have a light brown that I'm using on the chicken. And then I'm using that light red again on the comb on the chicken and an orange color for the beak on the chicken. To add shadows and shading to my images, I'll be using Prismacolor pencils, and then I'll blend those pencils with Gamsol and the paper blending stumps. To choose the colors for blending with my Prismacolor pencils, I would just color onto the paper to find something that's going to be darker but still coordinate with the Copic color that I used for the base color. I'm having my light source go straight onto my object, and so I'm adding my shadows along the edges and where it makes sense, like under the window ledge and around the door frame. And then once I have the shadows where I want them, I'll take a blending stump, add Gamsol to it, and then blend the colored pencil so that it's got a nice soft blend into the Copic color. I added rosy cheeks to my chicken with a pink colored pencil. I just added circles onto the cheek area with the pencil and then used Gamsol and paper stumps to blend those out. I also added a few polka dot details to my chicken using a Copic marker after I had finished all of my shading and blending. I'm cutting the barn image and the chicken image apart, and then I'll use the coordinating dies for the chicken head and the chicken body. I'll wind them up over the colored image and use removable Scotch tape to hold them in place and cut out the images with my Sidekick machine. I fussy cut the barn out with scissors. I used a larger pair of scissors to get nice straight cuts along the longer straight sides of the barn, and then used a little bit more detailed scissors to cut out around the top of the barn and that little bird weather vane. Next, we're going to get the tag base ready, and I'm stamping the gingham check background stamp onto toffee cardstock using Sugar Cube ink. I'll set the background stamp into my MISTI and then close the lid to pick it up. And then I'll add the toffee cardstock into my MISTI. I have some adhesive on the grid paper to hold the cardstock in place. I'll ink up the stamp with Sugar Cube ink and then close the lid of the MISTI to stamp the gingham check background onto the toffee cardstock. I'm taking the piece of cardstock that I just stamped and I'm running that through my die cut machine, and I'm using the second largest die in the Stitched Banners Stacklets die collection. Once my tag base is die cut, I'm adding a sentiment to it from the Farm Fresh stamp stamp set. The sentiment I'm using says "To the coolest chick," and it coordinates perfectly with the chicken image that I'm using on my tag. I'm holding my tag in place in my MISTI with the magnet, and then I'll place the sentiment where I want it to go on the tag. I'll close the lid of the MISTI to pick up the stamp, ink up the stamp with Oreo ink, and close the lid of the MISTI to stamp the sentiment onto my tag. I'm die cutting one of the tag reinforcement dies from a piece of toffee cardstock that I've backed with Stick It. I'll put that right on top of the cardstock, and then I'll send that through my die cut machine. To determine where I'm going to punch my hole for my tag, I'm moving the little die cut from the tag reinforcements set around across the top of my tag until I have it exactly where I want it. I'll use a pencil to draw the inside circle in that opening of the die cut, and then I'll use a circle punch to punch out the hole. This is a 1/4 inch circle punch, and I find it useful to flip the punch over so you can see where the pencil line is and line it up just right. Once the hole is punched, I'm peeling the backing from the Stick It paper from the back of my tag reinforcement piece, and I'll attach it right to the tag around the hole. We're ready to attach the barn and the chicken to this tag. I'll take the barn and I'm going to add some adhesive to the back, and it will just be attached directly to the tag base. I'll use a foam square on the back of the chicken body to attach it to the tag so it pops up just a little bit. I'll use the mini wobble spring to attach the chicken head to the tag. I'll just peel off the paper backings to expose the adhesive. I'll attach it to the back of the chicken head and then peel off the backing on the bottom part of the spring to attach it to the tag. Make sure when you attach the head to the body that you overlap the head over the body just a little bit. My final finishing touch on this tag is adding a length of gingham ribbon and threading that right through the hole at the top of the tag. This chicken tag is done, and he completes my set of tags created with these cute farm-themed products. I hope you learned something new today and that you enjoyed these fun interactive tags. They're going to be so cute when attached to gifts. You can find the supplies to create these tags in the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time.